Welcome, everyone, to CDO's Magazine series of one-on-one interviews with CDOs, data leaders, and key influencers. I'm your host, Robert Lutton, Vice President, Sandhill Consultants, coming to you today from Toronto, Canada, working with the CDO Magazine. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Brad Reynolds, who is the Senior Vice President of Artificial Intelligence at Expedient. Welcome, Brad.
Thanks, Robert.
From your specific vantage point, because you do have this vantage point, you're seeing this across many organizations. What do you see are the biggest challenges and or constraints for scaling the AI deployments? Because you talked about the 1 to 5, but you need to go outside that. What are the, in your opinion, biggest challenges and constraints?
Yeah, so in terms of scaling AI for organizations, the issue right now is a flywheel issue. So the first point of conversation that's going on usually is some sort of set of transformative AI use cases. So, hey, we're gonna put AI on the P&Ls of all 3,000 franchise locations. We're gonna do all this great financial working for pro formas and allow all of our. It's a very big project, and the problem is that nobody understands all of the AI and generative AI stuff fully enough to say, like, what's the risk factors of that product? What are the probabilities of that product succeeding? How long is it going to take? And so that's the kind of biggest challenge is biting off too big of a use case. And so that's why I think going back, it's how do you make it easy to show smaller, quicker successes? One of them being, let's get enterprise chat, and so that we give all of our employees a gym membership so they can learn about this AI stuff, but with some control, but a little bit of capability. The next step past that is, what are light use cases? So things that we're like, hey, this could save us 200 hours a year. This could save us 1,000 hours a year in support. This isn't necessarily transformational, but it picks off relatively small use cases where AI could be combined with internal data to help solve problems. Like, we use a couple of ones at Expedient. I'll give an example. Use case of, if we have a multi-client or multi-city outage potentially, we have to come up with a root cause analysis at the end. And there could be a whole bunch of tickets and all kinds of information and correspondence with vendors and all that type of stuff. So right now, humans go through and write a root cause analysis. Takes many hours. It's got to be accurate. So you have two issues. One issue is it takes a decent amount of time. Two, it's human, so it's not, you don't necessarily get all the data in there that you would need or consistently. And three, it needs to happen quick, because once the issue is resolved, you need to communicate that to the clients that were affected so they understand what's gone on. So those are the kind of three pieces. We were able to combine our private AI service. So this is AI models that run on Expedient hardware, so they don't actually go out to the open internet. This is client data with the client data that exists inside of our tracking system, and say, hey, essentially in English language, write a root cause analysis for this based off of these 8 tickets. And then within 30 seconds, the RCA comes out, and a human reads it, audits it, and then we're ready to go distribute it. So the time for us to turn that use case around took us about a couple hours of code.
Compared to a couple of weeks of code, right? Or a couple
of weeks of code, or let's just, we aren't going to do anything. We're just going to keep doing the manual process around it.
Right.
And so when you start bubbling that up to management, so we're not only AI service providers, we're also AI consumers. We have to justify as the AI team how powerful AI is. So bubbling up things that say, hey, we've saved hundreds of hours a month. There's consistency things that we've improved, and time to return things. Think of them as like a little rate card of the use case. Say, hey, we did this use case. It took us this amount of time. It saved us this amount of time as an org. It improved this quality. What's the ROI? So if you can put those little use case demonstrations up there, you're getting A, the organization understanding and experienced with it, but B, you're exposing that kind of ROI analysis to others, maybe at an executive level, so that when you want to go do the bigger things, that cost a bunch more money and take a bunch more time, you have a justification. You've shown small wins. And so I think the biggest issue with scaling right now is trying to jump too far ahead to the most exciting transformational AI use cases and not just doing some basic blocking and tackling. And trust me, all of our organizations already know the things that are real pains, like things that AI could do. They already know. I don't know it, but there are people that know those things that need to be solved. How can we find the easy ones, the ones that take a little bit of time with a big amount of output? That's just a dialogue. But our org has to understand. So like when people come to me and say, I have this, like that root cause analysis use case, my answer back to them was, well, did you use our chat to try and do it manually? So you can literally just cut and paste the information into our chat and ask it to do this. Okay, great. We can do that. Let's go make an application off of it. And so that's kind of the early stage of why chat's so important. That's kind of the use case generator. So when a subject matter expert's like, I think they can do this, none of us really know, can it perfectly do that thing? Let's try. Let's see if we can get it working, and then we can kind of build off of it from there. So you need that, we'll call it a pipeline of
those small buy-ins, ROI, getting success out there so you can leverage up. So maybe we can turn, because you mentioned just a couple of things in the last question about where Expedient can help organizations. And again, you've got a large experience and large knowledge base of how you can help organizations. Maybe you can take a minute to explain, from your point of view, how Expedient can address these challenges. So what would you do if you were consulted, someone were hiring you? Where would you start? What would you do to address these challenges?
Yeah, so I mean, the first question, if I were consulting to address AI challenges, like I would ask, do you want to be an AI forward or an AI empowered organization this year or not? And it's okay to say no, because for a lot of companies, they want to see success from other companies or peer companies before they're ready to go, especially in like highly regulated industries. So that's kind of like a choose your own adventure for 2024. Is do you want to be AI empowered or not? Now, if you say, I do want to be AI empowered, what are the items at the buffet that you can potentially sample to go down there? So do it just from an ROI analysis. What are the things that are relatively lightweight to implement that can kind of get that flywheel spinning up? And so would ask them questions around things like, do you have a AI policy? If you don't have a policy, I don't know if you can unleash chat on the organization, because you need to tell people, here's what you can and can't do. You kind of need to have that blocking and tackling done. Or do you have use cases that are you've been thinking about currently? Or do you have tools that could be AI enabled? Well, when you go and AI enable them, what models are they using? Are they using public models? Is that okay? And so the conversation relatively early outside of chat becomes a data conversation, which is the parlance of all the folks that are going to be listening to the podcast. So it's kind of like becomes, where is your data living? How secure and private does that data need to be? Not all data, some data can be used from public models because it's not proprietary. We're not worried. It doesn't have customer information, all that kind of stuff. And so as we start to explore what are those particular use cases, and then we start to understand, where is that data for stuff that we do, we could provide the chat kind of component of it as just the kind of the gym membership piece, but we're really a managed AI infrastructure provider. So we're not hey, go roll your own combination of AI models and data backends and all these things that are changing 24/7. Our conversation is, what's your use case? What business value are you trying to get out of it? And we can assemble those pieces for you. And I think most importantly, we can bring AI to your data. We're not necessarily, our solutions aren't predicated on, hey, you've got to take all of your data from where it exists now. And if you listen to Gartner, they would say 80% of enterprise data exists on-prem. We're not going to say, hey, you got to take that 80% and create a 3-year data plan to move that to some sort of a cloud system. Great, we have the cloud offering for you too, but we're happy to take that same AI capability and place it right next to the data that you already have, because the AI models will be able to, on a simplistic level, they pick needles out of haystacks. Where are your haystacks? Let's
Yeah.
put the AI next to the haystack, and then we'll figure out what needles we can pull out of it. And that's where use cases come in. But it really comes down to, where's the data? How do we get access to it? How do we make this thing, kind of scale for you? And so that's where the conversations tend to go. Once you get past the general kind of chat capabilities, what's your use cases? Where is the data? How do we get AI as close to the data as possible?
Brad, on behalf of the CDO Magazine, we appreciate your time and feedback. The knowledge that you've got, the knowledge that Expedient has got, it really brings to the forefront a generative AI and what you can do in the organization. So we want to thank you for your time. We hope that we'll get the chance to have you come back and share your knowledge again on harnessing artificial intelligence for the betterment of the organization.
Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. And for our listeners, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.